Okay, could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 22nd, 2017. It's 10 a.m. Getting some feedback. Yeah.
Just hit me. It's my sister's and brother's birthday today. I've got to call it. Yeah, I'll address the comments here in a minute, but we're getting some feedback. I think need to get that. You want to? Okay. Okay. You want me to talk, or?
Sorry, somebody turned the volume on the TV.
Guys can. Oh, the way up. I'll say. Can you hear? Does that sound okay now, then, Charles? Okay. Okay. So it's Wednesday, March 22nd, 10 a.m. This is a workshop. There are 3 different topics on the workshop. The order that we'll run them in the order that they're shown on the public notice. That would be first. There would be a presentation by County Council on a proposed travel policy. Second, there will be, I'm still hearing some of that here. Second, there will be a citizens presentation by whomever has been, decided between that committee or amongst that committee, but by the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. And then third, there will be a finance or a budget presentation by the county accountant, Louise Kallstrom. So we'll do it in that order. Typically we don't have 3 different items, major, items, or 2 of them are major on a workshop, but typically workshops also, we do not make decisions. We're here basically to listen. Normally we do not also have public comment because that gets us, in many cases, distracted, and all of a sudden it distracts the presenters too. So at this point, I'm going to say we'll start with County Council on the presentation on the travel policy, and then when we do get to the next one, which would be the Budget Advisory Committee, I'm assuming amongst that committee you have chosen 1 or 2 or 3 or more, individuals that will be the presenter or the presenters on that. And then when that's through, we'll go to the county accountant for that presentation. So County Council, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me okay? This is Commissioner Boyce.
Yes, can you hear us okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How is my audio, may I ask, please?
It's quite.
We can hear you.
Oh, we can definitely hear you.
Is it too loud?
A little bit, I would say, yes.
Okay, let me see if I can adjust.
Charles will tone it down here. Would you speak again?
Charles, I have very difficult, hearing clearly Commissioner Huxley there. Is there some way we can improve the audio?
Now, he's coming through that audio unit. Is that speaker, if it's down, can you hear it any better now, Commissioner Boyce?
Actually, that is a little better. Let's try
Yeah,
that. Thank
yeah.
you. I'm gonna go back on.
We'll just get it at the level here so that it's not blocked by a wall, basically.
How's that now, Commissioner Boyce?
Wow, much improved. Let's
Okay.
try that. Thank you.
You bet.
bear with us here, Commissioner Boyce. They're just trying to get I'm assuming a flash drive or something for a presentation by County Council.
I didn't quite hear that, but I think you're working on the difficulty things.
It's got to be up there. Okay.
Hey, Sheriff. We're on mic here. Hey, let's step over to
That's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, John Spicer.
How about now, Commissioner?
No.
Commissioner Boyce, can you hear us?
That is improved, thank you. There'll just be a little pause when I go on and off mute, so you don't
What
get the
about the
background
volume
noise
here?
here.
Will that control anything, or?
That volume, that's
Yeah.
how loud he is.
Okay, okay, but not us to him.
So I'll have to turn you up in here for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you want me to, can you hear it any better now, Commissioner Boyce?
You're actually fine, thanks for letting me go.
You wanna just,
Can you hear me okay, Commissioner Boyce?
Yes, thank you.
okay,
Thank you, Commissioner Gold.
Got a loud voice. No problem.
you want us to speak anymore, or?
Just continue.
Okay. Okay, where'd County
Out
Council?
in the hall. Talking to the sheriff. We're waiting on the county council.
Okay.
While you're waiting, thank you, let me go to Canada. I reconnected with my 7-year-old grandson. I won the wrestling match, but he clearly won the pillow fight.
Are you going to present from your materials?
I thought everybody would have a copy of it. I didn't.
No, you'll need to get it from, ask John Joseph for the thumb drive. We'll get you there. Right there. Ask him for the thumb drive to see that.
Okay, County Council?
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
This-
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is still a little loud on feedback, way loud.
And the only other thing, Charles, is that
Hang on, we'll get this one set first.
try to get the laptop to also
Okay.
show up on the screen.
You got it.
Very good.
Okay,
Did you find it? Good. So John, when the time comes, what we're gonna do is load that thumb drive onto the laptop, and you'll do what I'm doing here. So what I did is I loaded my materials onto the laptop, and these are the travel policy materials. And then John, when you're ready to go, you'll come up here, we'll load your materials on the laptop, and then you'll go through them for the board. So thanks, Mr. Chair, and I get the sense that I'm more or less the undercard here, and we'll let you get to the heavyweights as quickly as we can. What I'm here to present is some options for a travel policy for the board. What we have had in the past was some travel. Okay. I don't think I really want that.
it's, yeah, I would say get it started, there you go, there you
Okay.
go. You wanna move that out of the way too? Hit that, go down a little bit on your arrow and hit that, no, go up, right down and to the left slightly. Right, that arrow just below. Now
Yes.
click that and it'll get that out of there.
Sure.
There you go.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Chair. So what we have here is this is just a cover memorandum talking about materials for the travel policy for the workshop. And it says, accompanying the memorandum are 2 sample travel policies. One sample policy was provided by former Commissioner Susan Brown, and it was provided last fall, I think. And so-
October, I believe.
Sure, so the travel policy, and then since that time, or maybe prior to that time, we've had public comment on the travel policy. I think, oh boy, I'm not good with names, I'm gonna say Wiley, is that?
Catherine Wiley?
Sure, and she presented some statistical information on travel of one commissioner. And so with that, the board, and what we found is that we don't really have much of a travel policy officially adopted in writing for the board, and at the same time for the other elected officials either. The travel policy that we do have on our books and our fleet policy applies primarily to employees and all the employees of the county not working in the sheriff department. And the sheriff department, I think rightly so, is treated differently. They have so much, patrols and things like that it's difficult to come up with a travel policy for them. But I think for travel for training might make sense. So really, the board has a lot of options in going through a travel policy and selecting the details that it wants in a travel policy. What our travel policy for the employees does is it talks about, you will submit your travel plans, you'll get approval from your department head, your manager, and then you can go. And what the basis of the commissioner travel policy and the policy for the other elected is that if there's a plan for travel or a requirement for travel or a desire for travel, that the same kind of itinerary and rough expenses would then be presented to the board for pre-approval. And then while we do have a travel policy, and we do have also a fleet policy, again, those two documents are contained in our personnel rules. And our personnel rules say right up front that they don't apply to elected officials. And the idea behind personnel rules is that if they're violated, then you are able to do discipline, and up to and including termination. And as you know, there's no power of the board to terminate another elected official. So what are the other ways to enforce policies for them? So that's what we're going with on these. So what I've done in the travel policy is present two items. One is an item from Commissioner Brown, and it was fairly straightforward. And here is what Susan Brown presented back October 26th. And it talks about we have a budget and the board cannot charge anything except that it is budgeted, and then they can't be reimbursed by any commissioner for travel within the county, and then travel expenses incurred by a commissioner outside of the state of Oregon will be reimbursed only if it was approved in advance of the travel taking place, and then travel outside of the county but within the state that exceed the unexpended balance of the budget shall be reimbursed only approval of the Board of Commissioners. So this talks about we budget it and then the board can spend it, but it doesn't necessarily have the pre-approval ideas. It's one way to go. I think this almost mirrors how we've been doing it currently, where a commissioner will go somewhere and they will seek reimbursement, but even that reimbursement is not necessarily through the Board of Commissioners through any vote of the board. It's really, I think they just go through our claim form process and it goes through the administrative process there. So then when the subject of a travel policy came up, I thought, well, we already have a travel policy. It exists for our employees, and it has a little more process than the one that's currently used by the commissioners, or even the one that was proposed by Commissioner Brown. Part of the reason why I prefer a travel policy for the board very similar to a travel policy for the existing employees is that it's often that staff, myself, finance, payroll, the roads department who administers the fleet policy, those departments will often be asked the questions of, well, how do we do this? What does it mean? And for me, and I think it would just be more administratively efficient if we simply had one policy that applied to both elected officials and employees. That being said, what this proposes is a standalone policy for the elected officials, and that's where, and what it does here is it has, the underline is new language for the travel policy. It would be standalone, and then the crossed out is where the existing for the employees. By having a standalone policy, we don't have to modify several other provisions of our employee manual that still does not apply to commissioners. But by having a policy substantially the same in most respects to the employee policy, it makes it easier for the employees and the departments who administer the travel policy, both of them, to simply know what the rules are. And that's why this is just proposed to have the same rules as as the employees. There are some places where it doesn't quite fit. There are some provisions of the travel policy that says an employee on travel shall return to work as quickly as possible, this, that, and the other. And certainly that doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense for the commissioners. So really, you know, what it talks about, and it says it would apply to the Board of Commissioners, elected officials, and I did put department heads in here, or also appointing authorities. When I was looking at our employee rules and regulations, the department heads are sometimes treated differently from employees and sometimes treated like employees. Legally, I think department heads are employees, but at the same time, our employee manual could be more clear to describe that. And I think for the board today, we could take out the non-elected department heads, because some elected officials serve as department heads of their own departments. But we could take out the non-elected department heads and have the appointed department heads be subject to, and clearly subject to, the travel policies in the employment rules. So really, the idea here is that the officials will obtain approval prior to going on the travel, and then the person would submit a request for travel to the board ahead of time, and then the board would approve it or not. It's if an elected official wishes to delay return, they would also seek approval. So really, that's the gist of this. And then the other part about it is that we have a fleet policy, and here's what it says here. You respond to the individual elected officials are responsible for responding to parking violations. They shall report them to the board at the first meeting after the violation. If you have 3 moving violations in a year, that's ground for suspending county vehicle privileges. So really, these are just taking the existing travel rules and applying them to the commissioners. And all, out-of-state travel for which county reimbursement will be sought must be approved in advance by the board. Again, these are very standard, and I think what my memorandum said was that even though we have these requests for approval now proposed to be required, it does not have a actual sheet. We would need a form to say who is doing the travel, where they're traveling, what's the purpose, how many days, what's the cost, airline, motels, meals per diem, those kind of things. And then, so really that's the long and the short of the idea behind the travel policy, but it's essentially to create one set of rules that would apply to the commissioners and the employees. And then this is our fleet policy, and again, this these rules apply to county employees. And again, we would change this to have it apply to the commissioners as well. Qualifications for driving, driver eligibility guidelines, no conviction for traffic crimes in 3 years. And then we would also have, this has a form for, you will be responsible for traffic and parking violations, very similar to the other provisions of the travel policy. And then it also has the pre-trip inspection, post-trip inspection. The thing that I did not also find in it has policies on passengers, I think not using cell phones, those type of things. It's very straightforward fleet policy, but what I didn't see in here was a mileage log that would be kept, those type of things. So those would be options for the board if you wanted to adopt a travel policy for the board, including provisions for forms and pre-approval of travel for the board and other elected officials. So are there any questions of the board after looking at the materials in the presentation?
I found a few discrepancies here. Under 2B, number 1, it said 30 cents a mile. Why aren't we doing the IRS rate?
Well, that was a question I had, and I posed to the commissioners. And what I understood, and I think, is that for using a personal vehicle instead of a county vehicle? I think when I asked somebody why that was in there, they said it was really to discourage the use of personal vehicles. So
Okay, so that was under
it's
number
a policy choice.
1 and 2. Okay.
Sure, it's a policy choice, and a prior board had made that. The interesting part about the employee travel policy is that it's a set of rules that the board has adopted. So all of the things that are in the travel policy that didn't get underlined or crossed out are existing provisions which a prior board has adopted as a matter of policy, and this board could consider anything else they see in there. But that was a question I had, and that was the answer that I was provided with.
Okay, then under 3D, it looks like, it says commissioners will be compensated for travel time. And my question is, we're salaried. Is this really necessary to put that statement in there?
I think that's a good catch. And so this is, a work session, and that is a working draft. It's not a final product. It's got edit marks on it, and I'm open to any feedback from the board on changes. And I agree with you. There are some places where applying employee rules to commissioners doesn't make sense. So that's another place where it wouldn't, and we could remove that.
And then there was a discrepancy on number 4 that says $30 per diem up in the paragraph, and then down below it adds up to $42 for a per diem for meals.
I will take a look at that.
Okay, it just didn't add up, the
I
math
think that's
lady.
a provision that I did not change, that's an existing discrepancy in the existing policy. There's no underlines or cross-outs on those two provisions. That's a pre-existing, that's in the policy already. It looks like, it sounds like.
And then the per diem thing, I know I've traveled for a lot of, school districts, et cetera, and it's never been per diem. You always had to turn in receipts for meals, so I kind of question that.
It's a policy choice. I've seen it both ways. I've also seen sometimes if you know the amount of days you're going to be gone and the amount of meals you're going to be missing or needing to be covered for the travel, sometimes there's just an advance given. Other times you can do a receipts only, and then you will put a limit on what you would pay per
Right, that's
given
usually
meal.
what I've been involved in.
$8 for breakfast, $12 for lunch, $20 for dinner, something like that. Again, there's different ways to do it. For me, I would want to work with our county accountant to see what her experience and her recommendations. That's the kind of the number crunching part of the exercise. I was looking at a different part of the exercise, but the number crunching part, I would work with the county accountant and bring something back to the board on.
Okay. And that was pretty much it. This is pretty detailed.
Right, it's pre-existing, so I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to say I was being lazy. I was trying to be efficient, I suppose.
And I think when we turn something in for pre-approval, we should talk about how is this going to benefit the citizens of Curry County?
Well, that would go under, I think, the purpose of the travel. And sure, and usually if you're going to a conference and the subject matters are discussed, I think those are more or less in the subject matter.
Commissioner Boyce, did you have any comments or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, Council Huddle, thanks for the work you did there. I'm glad we're not voting today. I don't have a lot of disagreement with this policy, just in restrictions, the regulatory process, prohibiting commissioners from now and in the future from attending very important meetings. The more I travel with AOCC, the SOC Task Force, etc., the more I realize how important it is for Curry County. To date, 4 months, 8 times I've traveled outside of the county. I think it's a total of $1,100. I don't do meals. I stay at Motel 6 because of the budgets we have. It's just the best thing to do and easiest for me generally. And I can't imagine where in the future we'd be traveling out of the state much. That just doesn't seem like it's this day and age what we need to focus on. So I doubt that will become a necessary agenda in the future. So thank you again. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you, Commissioner.
We just have, at this time, a couple of comments. I would want to review it a lot further, look at, especially from the flow standpoint for getting approval. You can create something that you don't intend to create until you put down a flow and see all of a sudden, in order to get the approval, it takes you 4 weeks to get the approval before you get back to a Board of Commissioner office. But those things, again, we can work out questions, scenarios like that, but not, necessarily during this meeting.
It's probably one of the biggest differences between, I'd call it commissioner travel approval and employee travel approval. Employee travel approval is just by the supervisor who's there, and you go and you get it done. Commissioner approval would take a agenda and a vote, and there's a lot of time involved.
The intent is not to create an obstacle there, a time obstacle, but we can look at that.
I think the idea is
separately.
to be planful about commissioner travel and have everybody in the loop and have the purpose of the travel
Mr. Chair, Mr.
be
Boyce,
done.
thanks for that notation, and that's one thing I did want to mention in addition. So I'll sign off again. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had. I'll let you get on to the
So I would
other
say
items.
thank you. I don't think we need to schedule at this meeting a future date.
Mr. Chair, I think it'd be appropriate if the board had further feedback to bring it up at Commissioner Comments
Correct.
at the April 5th meeting
Okay.
and give direction to staff, and we'll just keep working on this. It's,
Okay.
it is a work in progress, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I had. I did
Okay.
want to help John Spicer,
Okay.
who's the CBAC representative. He wanted to get some assistance on the technology here. Is that okay, John? Okay. So here's. Open this guy. I think you're gonna want all of these things, so exact summary. So that's gonna go on this over here. County clerk's packet. So that'll be right over here.
Do you want to put those ultimately in an order that you want to go through so you can click from?
You guys get a printout copy of it at all?
mean,
I
have a
printed one
printout,
out.
But certainly the audience doesn't necessarily. That's where this.
Yeah, I printed one out too.
Okay, because the district attorney wasn't hearing.
Yeah, well, we can deal with
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, it's just a workshop.
We're not making any
But I
big
think
decisions
when
right now.
after county council's through, you might want to have him move or drag those so they're in the order as far as the way you might want to click on them.
Yeah,
Okay.
Summarize it. So
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, that's good.
And then all your stuff is on here. Now let me show you how it works. And then you'll be working, see here. So here's
Hang
your
on
exact
just a
summary.
second, Commissioner
You know,
Boyce.
you know how to do this stuff. You just move it right over here. Just move that mouse and click on and start talking.
Okay, hold on. How do I get the mouse on?
Well, no, there you're on road fund, but I think you want to just move it around. Just do this. See it? There's the arrow.
Okay. So you're talking
There,
about.
yep, and now you click it on your summary if that's where you're going to start. Click it up. Double click.
Triple click?
Oh, no, with this run here.
Oh,
Double. There we go. And then what
Okay.
Commissioner Huxley said is if you go down to, take your cursor down to this guy right here and click on him, and it'll hide all that stuff. And then you just have your document there.
and how do I
Ready?
get it to come down?
Ah, good. Now, how you get it to come down, that's what this little guy does. This guy, watch, ready? If you roll it, you just roll
Okay.
up and down like that. All right?
Okay.
Okay, very good. All right, Mr. Chair, I think
Okay.
Mr. Spicer's ready.
Okay, I'm
So
ready.
we're-
And
we're
can I
heading-
have Terry Barr come up here and Dan Crumley?
I'm sorry, can we quiet down in the audience, please? You want to identify yourself,
Oh,
John?
I'm John Spicer, Chairman of the Curry County Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. And I have two other people that I think wanted to participate in the presentation. I
Okay,
think Dan
you're
Crumley
certainly
wanted to.
Welcome, as many, as you want.
And
on the-
Terry
as
wanted to come
presenters.
on up too, so if they could come up, I'd appreciate it. I think we all know that the,
And if you could also, well, when they come up, just identify the other two
Okay.
presenters.
this is Terry Barr and Dan Crumley.
Commissioner Huxley.
And
Yes, Commissioner Boyce?
Sorry, I can hear you pretty well now, but background noise, I'm going to ask the folks that speak to do their best to talk right into the microphone and somewhat slow. Thank you.
okay, well, as you know, we were, I guess, asked to put together a recommendation on next year's budget. We tried to look at it from a standpoint of what the county should be doing for 20 years. We looked at the various departments. We talked to the assessor, the clerk, the district attorney, juvenile parks, road and sheriff's departments, and got some figures. I like to point out some of the quick summaries on them. What really bothered us when we started looking at the figures was that the road department's expenses are approximately $5.2 million a year. Now, we're looking at not exactly every little detail you've got coming in right now. We're trying to pick it out generally what you can expect over the next 20 years. Not exactly what reserves you might have or funds coming out from the outside. In looking at the road department, we found that there was about $3.3 million worth of short-term maintenance. That's just filling your potholes with gravel, scraping off the slides that come by, and Dan will speak to this a little bit more detail. But we only have $2.2 million in revenues to the road department. So the road department is functioning probably at close to a $3 million deficit, taking that money out of the reserve
Excuse
funds.
me, John, if you would, and I understand you want to talk directly to us, but if you talk completely away from both those mics, it's not
Okay, it's
necessarily
gonna
going to
pick
pick
up.
it up
I'm
for
sorry.
us in the audience.
The county expenditures, as we could figure out, close as we could come to, are pretty close to 8.7 million, with revenues approximately 5.2 million, leaving a deficit around 3.4 million. Long term, that's a pretty substantial deficit. It's pretty close to $6,400,000 that we're looking at trying to make up. If we continue taking from the road department, approximately 5 years, the funds will be gone in the reserve fund, which means we won't have enough funding to finance your financing the short-term maintenance. There'll be no money left for overlays and things of that nature. We went through the departments. I'd like to summarize basically the problems with the district attorney's office. If we cut back 30%, he's looking at losing the ability to prosecute B and C misdemeanors. That means thefts, trespasses, things of that nature. 60% reduction would make them basically dysfunctional. Sheriff, a 30% reduction would leave us with no road deputies. I mean, only 6 road deputies, I'm sorry. No harbor substation, no civil service in Brookings, minimum transport of prisoners, no extradition. In other words, they don't bring back people from out of state that were captured and held on warrants because they'd have to drop out of the transport services themselves. A 60% reduction would leave them basically with no dispatch, and it'd be totally dysfunctional. Even right now, I'd like to point out with the reductions in the jail, our abilities to prosecute felonies have been greatly reduced solely because the people are reduced and then they don't show up for court. So the conviction rate on your C felonies is dropping drastically just because we're releasing them when we don't have places to store them in the jail. We've got the basic report back there from the different departments. You can review those. If you have any questions on them, we can expound on them a little bit more, but let's see. We've broken the rest of the report into basically recommendations for the Board of Commissioners to review. I think those are pretty clear. We're pretty high on trying to combine the dispatch centers. We have 2 of them in the county. We feel there's some great cost reductions there. We've got a list of them if you want to go over them, but I think they're pretty self-explanatory. We have recommendations, and I like to point out that the Leipzig recommends absolutely no reductions in law enforcement. The committee did recommend some reductions. We recommended taking 2 people out of the juvenile department. We recommended combining the county council with the district attorney's office and having the county council do half-time work. I know these are recommendations that will drastically affect law enforcement, but we have to make some cuts someplace or we're heading towards pretty much of a disaster. So the recommendations are all set forth in here. That's about all I can add right now.
And either, Terry, do you want to make some comments, and then Dan, in that order? Or?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the commissioners for setting this up and the Leipzig to bring it forward. One of the things that we did right off the bat was look at all the departments, and we came up with the conclusion that we do not have a expenditure problem, we have a revenue problem. And looking at all the different departments and all, it was quite clear that there isn't waste and fraud that you're going to be able to balance this budget. It's a matter of you're already into the marrow of the bone, and we're now looking at literally having to shut down departments or whatever else if we want to continue. We agreed that we couldn't go over the cliff and at 90 miles an hour and not have any problems. We've been kicking this can down the road for almost 10 years or more, and we decided that, hey, we need to take a look at it. We were initially hoping to do 1 to 3 year type budget type thing, and what we're looking at really is just for 2017, 2018 budget, because we are recommending that you take up to $400,000 from the road fund to pay for the sheriff's department. Our committee was very divided on whether or not we should take any money from the road fund this year or whether we just go over the cliff and go from there. But we thought that by borrowing from the road fund up to $400,000, because we're recommending cuts of over $1.2 million in our document, and savings that total up to about $1.2 million. And so with the 400,000, we'd be able to continue to fund. It is going to make some hardships with other departments. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Excuse me. We also thought that this was going to have to give the board a chance till at least no later than May of 2018 to put something on the ballot for a revenue enhancer. Otherwise, we are going to be in worse shape than Josephine County, and they have no road funds. Coos County has no road funds. And if you drive around Curry County, some of our roads are starting to get in pretty bad conditions. I do a neighborhood watch, and just driving up and down out in the Sika Beach and Ophir, we can see roads beginning to sink and everything else. So this is a one-year budget. We know that we're recommending that next year for 2018, 2019, that no road funds be taken. We even looked at the road department using or not purchasing any equipment this year, trying to live within as much of their budget as possible. Like I say, it's a bare bones, in the morrow type of budget, and we really need to get the public to understand that our quality of life in the county is going to change without further revenue enhancements. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
County Council?
Thanks. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chair?
I'm
Hang on a
sorry.
second, Commissioner
I didn't know
Boyce.
Mr. Crumley was going to speak, so
Oh.
go ahead. I'll wait till their
Okay.
presentation is near the end.
Hold on. We're going to have one more speaker from the advisory group, Commissioner Boyce. You want to identify yourself?
Yes, I'm Dan Crumley. I think those of you that know us a little bit might chuckle at Terry's comment that we might have had a little division over using road funds for non-road purposes.
You should have been there at the last meeting.
That's kind of a gross understatement. But anyway, as a group, we came to a conclusion, and I appreciate that. If you rewind the DVR just a little bit here, you'll see that Terry said borrow. So I don't know if he meant that or not.
Are you
Yeah.
going
But,
Take.
okay.
to give us a play-by-play as far as how the conversation went at the last
So
meeting?
what you have there is the executive summary. Did you want to go into a different slide?
I do want a different
So
slide.
if it might be easier if I did that and got you to where you need to go, if I can.
Last attachment. I want to go to two graphs.
Okay.
And,
Hold on a second.
It's the very last attachment.
So what we have here is road fund impacts. We have presentation to Curry County, general fund.
General fund tenure, that's one of them. Let's look at that one, and then let's look at this one on the bottom.
Okay, so you want to see this one?
Yes, and what
Okay.
this is, these numbers are somewhat general. They don't represent the full revenue of the general fund, but they represent the two largest components. In fact is, without these, you don't have a general fund. So the rest of the income that the general fund would get is really minute compared to these two components. So what you have here, you have an O&C payment, which is the top, and those are the timber dollars that the county's historically received. And then you have property taxes in the kind of the red color there. And we just went back 10 years, grabbed actual numbers with the exception of 16, 17. But we didn't miss it by much. I think the general fund got a payment of, I can't even read it, so.
You can hit the plus and blow that up if
Well,
you want.
anyway, that's not, I think it's 600 and some thousand, 600 or 700,000, something like that.
Whoops.
But anyway,
Scroll-
the trend is
scroll.
what I wanted you to see. You'll notice that, and these are all safety net payments because we didn't go back far enough to get actual timber receipts when that program was in place. But you can see that the county 10 years ago had almost $5 million with these two components. And that was in '07 dollars. So 10 years later, we're at less than half of that. And you'll see that the general fund actually began to crash in 11-12. So 5 years ago, 6 years ago is when they really fell down, and that's when our infamous esteemed representatives decided that maybe if we spent some road money in the sheriff's department, we could backfill this problem. And that's what's done. That's how the general fund has sustained itself for the past 5 years. Let's go to the road department slide. It has the same kind of crash that you see here, only it's just a little bit worse. No, the next, no, sorry,
Beg your pardon?
sorry.
The slide.
It's right there at the bottom. There you go.
Here?
Same story, almost $5 million to operate with in '07. 10 years later, look what happened to the forest payments. And so what the road department used to run with was 3 to 3.5, even 4 million on some years of forest money. This year, that payment came in at, I believe it was 122,000, came in a week ago or so.
Wow.
So you go from 3.5 million to 100 grand. So that's why our committee said we've got two problems. You know, there's a perception that the road department's pretty wealthy and it's got a substantial reserve, and maybe there's really no thought to how long that would last. But you can see from this that it really won't last very long. So the county really has to look forward, I think, with some vision for two issues. How do you solve the general fund situation where really we're down to core? I think the belief of the committee is we're down to core stuff here. Are we going to prosecute criminals? Are we going to catch criminals? Are we going to house criminals? Are we going to collect taxes? Are we going to record documents? Those are the kinds of things that it seems like, I mean, we're not talking public health and some of these other things. We're talking really core public safety, basic county services. So if we're going to continue to do that, we have about $3 million shortfall to process that. On top of that, are we going to maintain county roads? Are we going to have a level of service that you enjoy today? Or do you want a level of service that you see when you drive from here to Port Orford today? If you haven't done that lately, make a trip. It's not fun. It's pretty bumpy, and it's going to get worse. So when I got on this committee, I really had a hope that our mission was to look forward quite a ways. And we got so embroiled in the problem and the many issues that we found that we just didn't have enough time to really process this beyond a year. So what you see is a report that reflects some ideas on how to resolve the coming year's budget. But I guess I would caution you that I believe, and I think I can speak for the committee, that the year you're facing and the budget you're going to produce within the next couple of months is not near as difficult as the one you're going to produce a year from now. And I think that you have some cash. I don't call that income. I call that resources. But you're going to utilize some resources that you're not going to have available next year. So if the income situation isn't resolved in the next 12 months, you cannot avoid probably eliminating the jail, eliminating patrol, whacking the DA. You can't take enough money from the road department to stop those cuts. So I guess I just encourage you to look beyond this year and Sorry for the sermon.
No, no.
This will be the easiest of the 2 years if you decide to take road funds. Or you can make the decision now
You might have to go to
to
the
go
mic.
over the cliff and just say, we're not gonna take road funds this year and go from there. But we still say that you're gonna have to get some type of revenue enhancer before the public if this county is
So
to
Terry,
stay
you
viable.
need to get closer to the mic. Thanks.
In order to remain viable as a operating county.
Yeah, I'd just like to, real quick, come to the conclusion of the committee. Basically, the committee came up that we agreed with using road funds that, at the current rate, that it's unacceptable. The committee has analyzed the past funding solutions and clearly recognized how quickly road funds will be exhausted. With this continued process, ideally, road department funds should not be used to fund road deputies in the next budget year. There is some consideration for reducing the amount of road department funds, but only for 1 year, should for $400,000 or less. The committee recommends that there be no reductions in the Curry County Sheriff's Office to sustain public safety at the current level. And like right now, I'd like to just point out that it really is underfunded. A lot of Class C felonies are not being successfully prosecuted because of the budget cuts. And C felonies are basically burglaries, theft, auto theft, things of that nature.
If I may, the sheriff's department is taking a cut in this because right at the moment in 2016, 2017, they're budgeted for 10 road officers. They weren't able to fill those. They got up to 9 for a couple of months and they're back down to 7. And so this, by setting it at 6 or 7, as we're recommending, that is a reduction from this current fiscal year.
Thank you.
Any,
Any questions?
Dan, did I see you, or did you want to make another comment, or no?
No, I'm-
Okay, okay.
I'm fine, thanks.
County Council?
Well, thanks, Mr. Chair. I know some people turned in speaker slips in this workshop, and we don't have a agenda item for public comments on workshops. If the board is, and I think it's at the
We had
discretion of the board.
addressed that. You may have been out in the hallway,
thank
and I
you.
mentioned that I thought, because typically we don't, we had 3 separate items on the agenda today also, that we would not take public comment, but that can still be up to the board.
In,
Well, Mr. Chair,
Did-
if I may,
Yes, Commissioner Boyce?
thank you. It's my understanding several people from the local public service coordinating council are going to attend today, and if they're there, I sure want to respect the time that they offered and give them each at least 3 minutes. I think it's imperative, I think it's important, and I would like the board's approval on that. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, then it's 2 that do, so we will allow it then with a consensus of 2, that would do that.
and I heard a 3-minute per speaker
Correct.
limit. I don't have the
Mr.
timer
Chair, I
on
also
me.
have a letter and a document, very short actually, from David Denny, Law and Probation, if I could indulge the board to let me quickly read that.
Okay, why don't you do that now, Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Huxley, Gold, and Boyce, LPSCC voted to present a few letters on behalf of the committee regarding the upcoming budget as it pertains to public safety. An agenda routing slip was submitted well in advance requesting the addition of the upcoming workshop. Unfortunately, County Council denied the request and advised to have LPSCC members with the addition. Public safety representatives appear at the workshop or submit the letter directly to the commissioners. I've attached the letters for review as advised. We're respectfully requesting to have the letter read to the group at the upcoming workshop meeting on March 22nd. We are also requesting some time for various committee members, public safety representatives to speak on this very important matter. Thank you for your attention. And then I'm just going to download it real quick here. Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop Considerations. The local Public Safety Coordinating Council voted on and supported the following following recommendation to the Curry County Board of Commissioners. Support no additional cuts to Curry County Public Safety Departments to include all divisions under the Sheriff's Office, District Attorney, and Juvenile. Thank you for your consideration. There's two more. Maybe I can read those at the end so I don't take up too much time. Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
Okay, the public comment cards, and I believe this is the order that they came in. There are 4. First
I
one,
think they talked about just having
Okay.
the lip sync committee members being able to speak.
well,
Not necessarily all.
we either do it one way or the other, so we'll start with the, just a hand raise from local public safety coordinating council members that would want to speak,
Well, or if you.
or as a group, or.
What I had heard
We don't
that-
want to hear the same, to repeat.
Mr. Chair, what I had heard that there were several persons in attendance who came to show support for the Sheriff's Department and the law and LIPSIC recommendations, and I think they could just show by standing, and then the ones who want to speak can, if they
Okay.
filled out a speaker slip, but otherwise, if they show by standing their support, that would give a quick, efficient presentation of the board of the support for the LIPSIC recommendations, if the board wants to do that.
Okay, I would certainly be amenable to that. Let me read just the names so that you know whether you had a speaker slip or not. And not to come up at this point, was Becky Campbell, John Brazil, Brent Webb, and Jay Trost. But back to the suggestion from County Council, those in support, would you like to stand? Okay. So we had certainly. Forward. We have the police chief from Port Orford. I'm not sure, you're from State Police, thank you. As I say, we have police, Fire Chief Brazil, we have Council Member Campbell. See, we have the District Attorney, the Sheriff Ward, John, back in the back there. We have Director Trost. Okay, thank you. And why don't we do this then for, the first one was Becky Campbell that had filled out a card. Becky, if you want to come up to the podium and identify yourself, please.
Certainly. For those I haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, hello, my name is Becky Campbell. I am a member of the Gold Beach City Council, and as a member of the Gold Beach City Council, we were lucky enough, thank you, to get a position on the local Public Safety Coordinating Council, which is a mouthful, which we call LIPSIC. So as a member of that committee, I was asked to come in and speak and represent Gold Beach interests, which isn't necessarily easy because we have 5 people on our council, and to get 5 politicians to agree on points to speak is challenging. So I feel fortunate that I was able to get my fellow councilors to agree on the points that I'm going to speak on. So as I'm speaking as a city council from Gold Beach. Over the course of the last decade, several ballot questions have been brought to our county asking for increased property taxes to support county services. The last levy that was brought forward was supported within Gold Beach. And that's important to note, that were that levy brought only to the city of Gold Beach and not the county as a whole, it would have passed. It did pass within our city of Gold Beach. So I feel very confident standing here saying that the city of Gold Beach fully supports the Sheriff's Department and funding it, because the citizens of our town supported the levy that was brought forward last year. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough votes to pass that countywide, but for the city of Gold Beach, the Sheriff's Department has our support as far as funding is concerned. In light of the failure to pass an adequate funding stream, we do ask, though, that every effort be sought to diligently find funds for the county outside of the city coffers. Gold Beach is concerned about our district attorney. and having staff to adequately charge cases that are brought before him. The thought that our DA will only be able to charge felonies and measure 11 crimes is alarming to much of the population of Gold Beach. Our district attorney needs staffing to charge the cases that he wants to charge, not just the cases that he has to charge by law. The county jail is also located in Gold Beach, as we all know. A recent decrease in the number of total prisoners allowed to be housed within the jail has already been incorporated into the county system. They used to house 50 prisoners. They're now down to 35. And we strongly encourage no further reduction of beds within the jail system. As people are cited and released from all over our county, they're cited and released into Gold Beach. As people are not medically cleared for incarceration, they are released from our county jail into the city of Gold Beach. So it is of highest priority for our Gold Beach Council for that jail to be open, to be fully staffed, so that we don't have the influx of people on the Gold Beach city streets. And that's pretty much what our city council agreed on. Now, how y'all are gonna do that, I don't envy your job. This is a tough one, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, the next speaker was John Brazil. Again, come up and identify yourself, please, John.
Yes, Commissioners. I'm John Brazil, I'm a resident of Harbor, Oregon. I'm participate in public safety as a fire chief of Harbor, Oregon. I'm also a member or participation with the lip sync committee. I just want to take a moment and but stand with what we are facing is a shortage of revenue generation. I don't believe that we are over expending through our departments in the county at all. Over the last 10 years, and the reductions and the adjustments that we've made within the county has been really, really substantial, to the point that we have this decision in front of us going forward in this budget year of where do we want to go with our county, or are we going to let this county go away? Because we're almost at a breaking point. Very, very close. We talk about how fast do we want to go over the cliff, or when do we want to do that? We have the opportunity, and the BOC has the opportunity to look forward past this year into the next few years going forward with a strategy of additional revenue generation. It's a revenue problem. We also want the board to encourage intergovernment agency participation. There's been a couple issues that's come forward through some of the other fire agencies and whatnot to work closer with the county to help reduce some county costs and whatnot that maybe should be readdressed. We, in the volunteer fire department service mainly, put a lot of effort into trying to be successful in life and safety issues within this county. There's 150 approximately volunteer firefighters, unpaid, that participate in supporting county emergency service activities. And we encourage the board to facilitate the success of that continuing to happen. And that's, I believe, all that I have to say at this time. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you. I got reconnected. I didn't miss anything. I just want to remind the speakers so far, my friends Terry Breyer and Dan Crumley moved through very nice, and the others I'm struggling to hear a little bit. That's all. Thanks again.
Okay. The next speaker slip was from Brent Webb.
Thank you, Chair Huxley. Port Orford also, I'm not gonna.
You want to identify yourself?
Brett
please,
Webb,
Brett?
I'm a city councilor at the city of Port Orford and also a port commissioner there. I operate a commercial fishing business here and I've been here for about 30 years. I don't want to be redundant, but Port Orford also supported every single law enforcement levy that's come down the pike. I recently chaired a subcommittee at the city of Port Orford in which we recommended and the council agreed to hire a 4th officer. We're seeing crime increase and we have no way to really combat it without a district attorney's office and a jail. And your first priority as government is to protect your people. And that's not really a debatable thing, I don't think, in my opinion. I think actually it may be to the chagrin of many, but I think that, you know, neighbors could gravel the road, but they can't prosecute a criminal. Neighbors can band together and fix a culvert, but they can't put a rapist in prison. Protect your people. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. The last speaker slip is from Jay Trost.
Thank you, Commissioners. I would,
You want to identify yourself?
Jay
please?
Trost, Juvenile Director, Curry County. There was a shortage of speaker slips, and I know that Chief Hobart came in after, and if you'd like my 3 minutes, you're more than welcome to it. I know that you made the trip down here, so.
Okay, we can deal with that.
Oh, okay.
You go ahead.
Well, the reason I put in the speaker slip was to read the lipstick letter that Commissioner Boyce read over the phone. All I can offer is, you know, agreement with the other public safety officials in how this this budget season is critical to the health, safety, and welfare of our county, and understanding that without public safety, it will be a very difficult future to navigate. And I just sincerely hope that these concerns are being weighed very appropriately for the future of our county. And that's what I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, you want to come up and say next one? Please.
I'll try and keep it just a couple minutes. Chief Hank Hobart, Port Orford Police Department. Getting over the worst cold of my life. I was in training all last week, going from my bed to the training room. In any event, I'm going to give you a little different perspective for those who don't know me. I'm a transplant from Josephine County. I started my career there in '89. I own property there. Been there since '85. Family's there. Worked for that sheriff's office twice, laid off twice. What I don't want to see happen here is we start down the road to where the failure keeps getting more and more and more every year, and you don't get it back. I had a long conversation with county commissioner from there yesterday, and she used to be a city councilor, and that's the reason I had called for her, is to get her take on the city council aspect of it. Living in the county over there and having property in the county over there and working for the county sheriff's office, I certainly know what happens when your county services degrade. Lived it, seen it, still have property there. But I wanted the perspective of the city government. She's now a commissioner, had been a city councilor for years, and my take on it, I guess, was fairly accurate. So basically what happens is the city government, which we have 3 here, the worst hit would be Gold Beach, probably, because they're the hub. But once you start having the decline all around you, you get inundated. I don't care how good you are. The city
the police department over there, for perspective, is top notch, has been my entire career since 1989. Well run, well funded, well maintained, and they're overrun at certain times, especially in the summer. Now, before I came to work here in 2014, the 12 years just prior to that was in the Jackson County system as a chief and a sergeant. I do not know how many times I've had prisoners in the back of my police car going to the Jackson County Jail, strike up a conversation. I ask them, why are you here? This is somebody I'm arrested from Idaho or Washington or Wyoming, because we, quote, heard there's no cops here. We don't need to start down this path here. My suggestion is shore up your sheriff's office, because we need them. All 3 cities need them bad. Shore them up for a year, and let's get something else on the works to solidify their health for the long term. I know the 881, but a levy attempt we passed in the North County. I talked to a lot of people outside of Port Orford. I don't remember talking to anybody who was anti that. It failed, and you guys can debate why it failed. It's your thing, but I'm afraid once we start down, historically speaking, the path of declining law enforcement, you won't get it back. The disappointment with the declining law enforcement will get muddled into the mix, and who's to blame, fingers pointing. It'll be harder and harder and harder to get back what you've lost. Seen it, and I don't want to see it happen here. Questions? Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, what's next on the agenda?
We have another speaker. Sheriff Ward's just come up to the podium, Commissioner.
Excuse me. Thank you again.
Hi there, Sheriff Ward from the Sheriff's Office. I didn't fill out a speaker's slip because they were out. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. As a sheriff, I'm responsible for the public safety of all citizens in Curry County. And that's everyone, not just anybody in the unincorporated, but that's also in the incorporated. Yeah, the cities all, at some point in their history decided they need more coverage, so they hired and got their own police force. But it doesn't relieve me from my responsibility of providing public safety to the entire county. So I just wanted to clear that up. I want to appreciate everybody that's here that showed up to support, public safety. I see OSPs in the audience. I recently was able to talk with Major Hyder and Captain Peterson from the Oregon State Police. I invited them down to talk to me regarding their what they can provide if we end up with these cuts that we were asked to look at. And they pretty much told me, and I want to read a quick letter from them. It's pretty short. Unless you would like to come up and talk about it.
I was going to quote the letter.
Once you come on up and then say that, if that's okay.
Sure.
After my conversation with them, it was quite clear to me that they were not in a position to take over our duties as a sheriff's office.
Well, identify yourself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Lieutenant Jeff Lewis with the Oregon State Police. And Captain Phillips and Major Hyder indeed did come down and speak with the sheriff at his request. And the thing that we wanted to point out and make clear is that we ourselves struggle with staffing at our Gold Beach office. We have 6 positions at that office, of which we have a hard time keeping all 6 filled. Many times we go without a trooper on duty in this office, and we struggle. We have no offices statewide that are 24-hour coverage, and as you know, our primary responsibility is state highway traffic safety. But that said, I wanted to kind of pull in the DA as well, because as you know, many of the traffic crimes that we deal with are misdemeanor crimes, but they're important to traffic safety, and if we can't prosecute those, that has an effect as well on our mission. But in terms of supporting the sheriff's office, we value our partnership very much, and we will continue to assist at current levels, but it wouldn't be right to paint a picture that OSP could come in and somehow take up the slack.
That's just not going to happen. It's clear that we just do not have any other, in this current budget environment, there's not going to be any more authorized strength for Gold Beach or any of our offices statewide. What we have is what we have. And so we can continue to support and assist as we do today, but anything beyond that is not in the cards. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
I just want to thank it's important that we try to find a funding solution for the entire county, not just law enforcement, because we rely on the other offices, to do our job as well. Just a quick comment on, I appreciate Gold Beach being here, and because she was an ex-corrections officer, I believe, and she has been in a situation where they had to shut down a jail, and it wasn't pretty, of what I understand. I just think that with the support of everybody here, that we really need to look at a funding solution for all the county services, but especially for law enforcement. That's my job, is to provide public safety, and I can't do it the way it is right now because we don't have adequate resources. Cherry Bear said we're cut down to the marrow. I'm only able to do 10 hours a day in patrol services with 2 people on a shift. I don't want to put one person out there because they don't have backup. I got to have somebody they got to have backup when they go out, especially dealing with today's crime. We just had 2 homicides down in Del Norte this last week. There were shootings over in not Cave Junction, but Klamath Falls. We've had numerous burglaries this last week and a half, 2 weeks up in the North County, stolen vehicles, and we are taxed. We don't have the resources to deal with all that, but we're doing the best we can. And quite frankly, our best isn't good enough. So we need to find a solution to fund law enforcement, public safety. So just a quick comment on when Becky said about 35 beds from 50. That jail was never really meant to hold 50 because there was a room downstairs that wasn't secure, it drywalled, and that's where we had 10 people. It doesn't meet standards whatsoever. When I took over as sheriff, we had to get rid of that bottom room. We just didn't have the staff to go up and down, and to deal with that room was just not secure. So in what we have, we looked around and figured out the most that we can put in there is 35 people, and that's not counting. If we use the holding facilities, we can't count those as beds because people come in and come out of those rooms. We're using the interview rooms and the booking rooms as beds, just throwing a mattress down there and calling it a bed. Well, that's not suffice as security-wise. So in order to make sure that our jail is properly secure and staffed well with what we have, the maximum we can have in there is 35. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. District Attorney?
I'd like to thank you for letting me speak to Everett Dial District Attorney. I also didn't have a speaker slip. I think we ran out over there. I'd just like to say a word about the Sheriff's Office. They have deputies who work in our county every day, and those deputies, after they've worked here for a while, get to know who the criminals are. I run into people who have not reported crimes because they said, well, how would they ever figure it out? And the fact of the matter is that they often do figure it out, that they know who to talk to on the street, who can tell them where the stolen stuff is going to end up. And they're able to solve crimes, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're experienced in the communities. They know who the criminals are. They know who they can contact, who they can trust to solve crimes. And so it's a problem, of course, if you lose those experienced deputies. And we already have a problem with short staffing on that. There's certain times of the night where there's just not enough staff in the sheriff's office to be on the street. We have a problem keeping them because Curry County, unfortunately, has low pay. If we have the severe budget cuts that could come, of course, that problem would be really exacerbated. If the jail shuts down, then there simply would be no law enforcement in Curry County. I had someone once asked me, well, couldn't we still have court and prosecution? Well, no, you can't, because people would not come to court. And having the having the knowledge that the court has the ability to put a person in jail if they don't appear is helpful to ensure that they come to court. My office, I have one deputy that does primarily misdemeanors and one that does primarily felonies. I take a mix of different cases myself, and I do the administrative work. If the loss of, and compared to most counties this size, they usually have more than 2 deputies. 3 or 4 is common. They usually I have 2 staff members, an office manager and a legal assistant. Most counties have more than that, but we're able to function on what we have. However, the loss of my legal assistant would mean that I or one of my other deputy DAs would suddenly have to start doing clerical work. I had a case a few years back where a guy was beaten with a baseball bat by 2 other men and dragged out onto the beach. They've been in prison. They got a 16-year sentence, and they've been in prison for some time. But now the defense attorneys up in Salem have filed a motion for post-conviction relief. Part of that requires us to copy every single document in the file. We have two boxes that are full of pages. Just that project alone for my legal assistance is taking many hours. And that's something that, we need staff support for lots of different reasons, and any cut would harm us. Thank you, commissioners, for letting me speak. I appreciate that. It's a tough position you're in, and it's a tough decision. So hopefully we can keep the law enforcement going. And I'd like to thank everybody for showing up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Huxley?
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard Sheriff Ward a couple of times, maybe 3 times, and he needs to keep repeating it. We all need to listen. It is his responsibility, but it is all of our responsibility to absolutely solve the problem. I'm sorry I'm not there. I should say problems, will confuse me. I'm sorry I'm not in the room there to show respect to the people that give their time today and serve in a capacity they serve and take a risk. I'm going to thank Commissioner Gold for recognizing and agreeing that it was important to hear them out today. I really appreciate and understand the principles behind a well-organized agenda. These people that are willing to give their time and have contributed so much, both as the Budget Advisory Committee as well, the Local Public Safety Committee, some of these people have been serving on this for years and have been trying to get the attention of the public and the commissioners. So I can't thank them enough. I am battling just a little bit of an attitude in that they have to ask 2 or 3 times to be able to come before us. I don't understand. We spent 30 minutes on the commissioner travel policy where we don't have a problem, although I understand the wisdom in preventative maintenance. I did not see that as a primary priority today. So I'm just going to conclude here with a challenge to the board and the public. Listen carefully to what these people are telling us. And our culture, our neighbors, the people we represent, no question in my mind, will be far better off if we do listen. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner Gold again.
Okay, I think that would conclude, unless you have any comments. I just, have reviewed, but I want to review some more. I'm not going to make comments but you're welcome.
Well, all of
to,
this is going to be
Gold.
going to the Budget Committee, right? I kind of wanted to know some justification. For instance, there were some recommendations here. One of them was to cut the treasurer by 50%. What was your rationale or reasoning in that?
You want to come back up to the podium then, John?
Oh, here we go, number 5.
Number 5, let me grab my 5. No cuts are good, really, to be honest, because all the departments are now down to the bone right now. The only reason we recommended that in the juvenile department was solely because it's an area that can be cut without as much collateral effect on the other departments. Granted that.
So are we talking about the same department? I said the treasurer.
Oh, I thought juvenile department. You said
Oh,
5
no.
on the
Well, number
recommendation.
5.
Yeah. Oh, so you're.
I think it's number 5. At least it is on my copy.
Yes,
copy
it
is
is.
different.
Number 5 is the treasurer.
Oh, number
On the
5 in here?
recommended.
Oh, hold on here. Are you on the recommended?
The recommended
Recommended
by
for
CCBOC
CCBOC review.
review.
You're for you to review.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
okay, I was on
You
the-
had a bunch of recommendations.
Yeah,
and I was-
we have a second page of recommendations.
Yeah, that's the next
The
section.
Treasury Department's workload has gone
Pages
down
over.
substantially, and we just felt that a half time, but we don't know for sure. This is in the section where we recommend you to review that potential.
Okay,
We
I
have-
just wanted to
Yeah.
know what your reasoning was.
Yeah, it was just that the workload has dropped substantially from
Okay.
what it has been in the past.
Okay,
And the section, we had actual recommendations rather than areas for you to review.
Do you have some other questions while John's up there?
oh, the financial audit by sending it out for RFP,
Yeah, we just,
was that because there's been some experience in that area and we haven't been doing that, or?
well, we had Gary Short on our committee too.
Right, and he made that suggestion?
He was under the impression we might want to at least look at it.
Okay,
Uh,
well, I'm all for looking for the best deal, for sure.
That's all we were doing, just seeing if we could look at them.
Okay. Contracting out. It was payroll and HR. What was the reasoning there?
Just from past experience in managing some of the organizations that Ken had been involved in and I've been
So this has
involved in.
been done successfully in other organizations,
Yes,
is that?
it has been,
Okay,
but it may or may not fit here. We just wanted you to look at it.
okay, that's great.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, real quick, please.
Commissioner Boyce?
Yes, thank you. I won't interrupt again. I'm going to be able to listen about another 20 minutes, but then I'll review the meeting again through video, and I thank you for your patience today.
Okay. That was your comment then? Or did you want to say something else?
No, I'm done. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I was just kind of overall looking at your recommendations, and a lot of them included contracting out services.
Yeah.
And that would probably be to save benefits, et cetera. So,
Right.
okay,
If while you're up there, and I guess this would go to any of the members, but certainly you've been the main spokesperson along with Terry Brer. If after review, and I'm sure I can't speak for the other commissions, we have a particular question, can we just feel
Oh, yeah.
free to
just call.
contact or get
Yeah.
together with you, sit down and go through some of these?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sure.
okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, John.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I think, County Council, did you have any comments or?
No, Mr. Chair.
I think then what we will do, it's 11:30, we will then move to the third item on that agenda, the budget item, which is basically the budget again, but from the worksheets and the purview of the county accountant, Louise Kallstrom. Well, you could go in, you want to go into the drive, or you want to go with just use her computer, or how do you want to work that?
My understanding is this isn't connected to the network. Do you have your materials on it? Yes.
Okay.
Does that have your materials on it? Oh, good. Well, let's load that onto here.
There you go.
It's just that I have to take you in and out to make a few things, but otherwise I have to shut it down.
Well, what we're gonna do is we're going to take whatever's on here and stick it on this.
Just saying, I had to pull it out of that computer without rejecting it.
You didn't hurt its feelings. It will be okay. It will.
Got to get into this. Too late? Or just save it for another time? We could just save it
I
for the
would,
budget.
because they've left now, so that's what I
Okay.
would suggest.
Just wait.
Yeah. If they're still there,
That's okay. I'll
perhaps
just
not,
wait on
yeah.
it. Because I thought there were some really good suggestions there.
There's that. Now we fill up the shoulders. And then this is
See, you
your
won't,
mouse.
you won't need that.
Yeah. You-
No, this is in case I get asked
Oh,
questions, because I have
okay,
materials
okay.
on this
Okay.
Now
that I
your-
might need.
Your thing is right here, and then this is your mouse, and it's
Okay.
going over to there, and then you just use a roller to get up and down.
Okay.
And you want to identify yourself
Yeah.
first, please?
I'm opening my file here. I've gotten used to, my last computer just had this little roll pad on the computer, and I got really used to it. But now I've been using a mouse again, and it's hard for me to do the little finger thing again. Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant, and doing a presentation for the budget balancing. These are recommendations to the board to consider to balance the budget. I considered the general fund. Am I not speaking loud? I don't have a loud voice. So my recommendations are really just concentrating on the general fund. There are other funds, especially the road fund, that will need to be worked out, but those are also zero balanced funds, and that can probably be done just with the department head for those funds. However, the general fund has a great reduction in revenue, and so I would like board direction on balancing the budget so that we can present a proposed budget to the budget committee. The numbers that you're going to be seeing are not budget line items. They're adjustments to existing budget line items. So these numbers are adjustments to those line items. They're not how much that line item will be. Okay? So my first recommendation is we have various restricted activity grants that are in the general fund, and some of them, there's a large dollar amount attached to them, but most of them have that dollar amount as a revenue and expenditure, and to move them out of the fund, out of the general fund into their own restricted funds would not affect the general fund in any way, except for there are few that have revenue budgeted in the general fund, but did not have expenditures that were identified against those grants. So the moving those grants out, the net effect would be an $8,082 reduction in revenue to the general fund.
Every bit counts.
Yep. So that does decrease our revenue. That's going in the wrong direction. But the county auditor has had that on a comment for quite a few years, that restricted grants are in the general fund, and they are difficult to track within the general fund. The recommendation I have, that's number 2, is there are certain departmental budgets that also have very restricted funds within them. If they're in the general fund and they have a carryover balance, those carryover balances absorb into the general fund carryover, which is not allowed. And so what we're proposing to do is to move the search and rescue, marine patrol, forest patrol, and adult patrol and probation to restricted funds, much like a grant. And they would be zero balanced budgets when they are moved. But right now, those 4 departments are taking $47,884 from general fund revenue, which they will not do anymore, and that's a decrease in expenditures, which is moving in the right direction. There's also 2 programs, the RSVP program and the SHEPA programs, that are in this year's budget that are discontinued. They were discontinued earlier this year or before I got here, I'm not sure.
Earlier.
So those particular activities were taking $18,000 out of the general fund, which won't be anymore because those programs are discontinued. My 3rd recommendation is that there was a budgeted carryover into 16-17 this current year, and the actual carryover was more than that. That is attributable mostly to there are certain things in the budget that are really not budgeted. They're unappropriated expenditures. But there's also been underspending of certain things, like a sheriff has at least 3 positions that are unfilled and that are budgeted. So those positions, they contribute to the carryover if they're not filled, and other savings within departments. So it's quite a few different things that happen when you have a carryover like that. Yes, sir?
One quick question on that. When you say that, but we're dealing general funds, so
General
those
fund.
positions are not road deputies, correct, when you say carryovers?
Yes, they are. They are budgeted within the general fund. Road
True,
deputies
but-
are, all deputies are budgeted in the sheriff's
But
department in the general fund.
after the expenses are incurred, we take the road fund reserves
The road
and move
fund,
those to
the road
cover
fund,
that, correct?
the road fund revenue is a revenue into the general fund.
Okay.
So if that's moved over,
So-
it's part of the general fund revenues. But if you have 3 positions that are expenditures that are not filled, then you don't have those expenditures, which reduces, which increases your carryover.
Okay, but the road fund reserves may only be used for specific deputies, classes, not all deputies. I'm just saying
This is a
that's-
carryover from 15-16, so I don't know
That-
exactly what was
Well,
expended
we
and
can
not
talk
expended.
separately
Yeah.
about that, but there's definitely some
Yes.
restrictions.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
there's
that
some
have to go
restrictions
back
on it.
into the road fund if it's
Well-
not expended, or?
Yes.
But this is 15-16 carryover.
It was
We're
still-
16-17 carryover into next year is where last 15-16, there was no road fund money coming in.
Oh, that was a year, okay, you're correct.
So there's
We
no
used-
road fund money in this carryover.
Okay.
Oh, okay,
That's
that's
correct.
good.
That's correct.
It's this year that you would have to be concerned
Okay.
about
Yeah, that was the one
what the
year, you're
expenditures
correct.
against the road fund revenues, yes. So anyway, if you have a carryover that's more than your budgeted carryover, it has a lot of components to it. I'm short of time. I did not figure out exactly each penny of that carryover and where it came from. But suffice it to say that if you use your unanticipated carryover like I'm using it now, it's a very short time that you can use it. And once you use it, like next year, if I don't have a carryover again, I'm going to have to reduce revenues by the same amount next year in order to continue, because I can only budget the carryover as it actually happens at least. So if you increase your budgeted carryover, the next year you might have to decrease it. So this is a very short-term solution. I've only used half of it, so it could be a 2-year solution. That's it.
So you're saying if we don't have it, we can't spend it, huh?
If you don't have it, if you don't have the revenue, you can't spend the money.
I got you.
Recommendation number 4. The current budget for the ONC harvested timber is $250,000. That's what's in the 16-17 budget. We did already receive around $690,000 within the last month or so. I spoke with Rocky McVeigh, and he looked at a bunch of numbers. I'm not sure exactly what he was looking at, but he was forecasting that we would receive somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 in the fiscal year 17-18, and that's based on, since there's a delay on when they harvest and when you get the money, I think it's pretty good forecast. And
Has he usually been pretty accurate in his forecasts? Just curious.
He wouldn't be giving you
Commissioner
that
Gold,
number if he wasn't.
Okay.
And I wouldn't know
Comfortable,
myself
yeah,
because this is my first
Well,
time.
he's been conservative, absolutely, if he wasn't.
Yes.
Okay,
and
so we could
Sure,
trust
he
those numbers is
wouldn't-
my
he wouldn't
point.
be
So
making that statement.
if he did the estimate to be 500 and 600,000, I'm taking the low number because I am conservative, which does add increased revenue of 250 because we're only budgeting 250 right now to bring it up to expected revenues. That's bringing up increasing revenue of 250,000. In the non-departmental, which is kind of my department within the general fund, I went through all the revenues. I looked at their history. I looked at actuals. I looked at probabilities, even increasing the property tax revenue by the 3% that we usually do. I had to decrease other miscellaneous revenues. So the net effect of that is a reduction of almost $7,000 to budgeted revenues.
We don't like the red.
I know. I hate doing that part. So, recommendation number 5. Okay, so I had meetings with each department head, and we looked at their current budget. We looked at the past 10 years' history of their budgets, and I was forecasting out where their funds would end up at the end of this year. There were a couple of reserve funds that were, I'm going to go down to here, this $40,000 one. There were a couple of reserve funds coming into the general fund to help with various, with 2 of the departments. One being the clerk recording department and the other being the county surveyor. So, but the amount that was coming in from those reserve funds was more than those reserve funds were getting in revenue. And it was alarmingly spending down those reserves. So my recommendation is there was $80,000 coming in from the recording reserve fund. And so I reduced that down to 40 instead of 80,722 to keep it in line with the revenue that was actually being received into that fund to not reduce it any longer.
So did you look at, say, several years past?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I looked at, there was a huge hike in what was taken this year, before, since the year before, and it's spent down. It's not, you can't sustain that. If you
Right.
spend it down, then you spend it down, there's nothing left to take. Same thing with the county surveyor, the Cornerstone Reserve Fund was taking more than it was generating, and it was getting very close to being spent out. So I'm reducing what was coming in from there by $10,000. So that's a hit on revenue of about $50,000.
More red.
More red. Part B here is in order to balance the budget, I'm going to decrease revenues of $1,205,000 coming out of the road capital improvement funds. Right now we have $1,007,000. I would take that down to $500,000 instead of $1,007,000. And that's only $100,000 more than the CBAC was their top dollar. But that's a substantial reduction in road fund use for the general fund. There was another little quick adjustment. There was a transfer budgeted in the Sheriff's Department for a partial cost of the code enforcement officer, and the Sheriff Department is no longer handling that position, so that transfer from public health to the Sheriff's Department will not be needed, and therefore it's reducing that line item revenue. Okay, so recommendation number 6. I'm recommending closing county services for 6 days during the 17-18 fiscal year. And that's with the caveat that the county, the citizens, interested parties join together to pass some kind of additional revenues for this county. And the one that we spoke about was a sheriff levy, putting it in the November 2017 ballot. And we need to permanently fund our public safety. There's been a lot of spoken on that today. I totally agree with everything that they say. I've been looking at this budget for quite a few months now, and I don't see anything. I can only see that we are bare bones. The only solution to funding this county is to have additional sources of revenue and increase our revenue in some way. So anyway, the calculation for the savings of cutting 6 days is approximately $17,000 per day in the general fund. But all employees would participate in this 6-day cut.
Wouldn't that be with the exception of the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I've talked about that quite a bit. There's there are essential services that have to stay open. My idea would be to go ahead and do those 6 days, but they would do it differently than everybody else. Everybody else would close their department, put a sign on the door saying that the county is closed for financial reasons, but the Sheriff's Department and the jail cannot do that. So my proposal would for them to schedule those unpaid days off, much like they schedule their vacation or prearranged sick days.
So could county employees, if they were to have 6 days off, could they use that as one of their vacation days, or?
No, these are scheduled unpaid days.
Okay.
And I recommend that they be on a Monday.
Or Friday.
Well, there's already county departments already closed on Fridays. So maximum effect would be Mondays. And that's something that certainly needs to be discussed quite a bit. My my proposal is an idea, and it would be certainly up to the board to totally fill out that idea and whether they want to do it or not, and what it means to do that. And what it means to do that is basically that we can't run this county on the revenues that we have.
So had you thought about maybe taking several days a year and just cutting back the hours rather than whole days?
Well, for 6 days means that every 2 months, there's one scheduled day in the month off. Salaried people would have their annual salary calculated, and the 6 days taken off the top, and then the remainder of the salary paid over the 12 months equally. Hourly people would be most affected, and that would mean that one day every 2 months they would have an unpaid day that would affect their paycheck. And this does not include irregular workers. It only includes regular salaried people, regular workers. I don't know how many people in that category are really hourly paid.
Well, if you're thinking 8 hours a day, let's see, 6 times 8, that's 48 hours. If you spread 48 hours over the year,
It's more difficult to spread a cut day on an hourly person because they get paid the days that they work. Salaried people, they get paid for basically being there for the year, and then if you cut 6 days, you can adjust the salary to be spread evenly.
you couldn't still spread it evenly if you just said, we've got 48 hours over the whole year, we're cutting back?
Because I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that because of hourly payroll labor law, that you can't change somebody's working hours like that.
That's
They get paid for
interesting.
the hours that they work in a pay period.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking in
Yeah.
terms of keeping the county running as efficiently as possible.
Yes, and I think that the whole idea of this is that the county can't run completely efficiently, and that's why these are the days that the county would be closed.
Okay, just 2 cents worth.
I understand. Recommendation number 7, there's 2 pieces of it. Reduce a budgeted position through attrition. The county election department has 1 position that has not been filled. The sheriff department has 3 unfilled positions. However, this recommendation is only taking 2 of those unfilled positions.
So question, when you list, say, the 50,000, does that include the benefits?
Yes, that
Okay.
was budgeted for that position.
Okay.
Is the total payroll plus associated payroll costs. And then the second piece of that through attrition also was to combine the BOC office and the finance office, so that the finance office would provide some kind of backup to the BOC daily operations, and would allow that 1 unfilled budgeted BOC staff position to be reduced through attrition. That there's 2 positions currently budgeted for the BOC office, so there would be 1 full-time position and then some staff sitting in the background to help out to make sure that the office runs efficiently. That's not a full hit for that position because that position is outside the general fund. However, the costs are through the what are those called? Services. They're costed to different departments for administrative services. So this is approximately about half of the cost of that position, which would affect the general fund only. On recommendation number 8, there was a, all right, stop doing that. There was a typo when they were entering 77,500. 75,000 actually got entered into that budget line item, went through the budget committee, was adopted, and is not necessary. So it does
Zeros
decrease.
count, huh?
It does decrease expenditures by $67,500 because of that error.
Of course, that's a one-year thing.
That's a one-year thing, yes. But it does bring the supply line item back into line with what it should have been. Also, my recommendation is to reduce all material and supplies budgets, which taking out the administrative intergovernmental services and any grant budgeted line items by 5%. There's a schedule at the end of this. That's including the administrative services, material and services budget. That's a decrease of expenditure of $155,000 for the general fund. And then to complete the budget balancing, I'm off $930 off of this schedule. So this schedule, the increases of revenue, some decreases of revenue, decreases of expenditures, the net effect at the very bottom is a 0, which means that I have reduced some of these expenditures and some of these revenues enough to balance the budget.
Did you get a chance, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but did you get a chance to look at these? There was some brainstorming done by, I guess, the roads department, the planning department, and the surveyor. And I thought there were some really good suggestions there, and I forgot to mention it. This came from the Lip Sync group. Did you get a chance to look at this?
I have not seen that, so I don't know where it was sent, but I did not get it.
Yeah, one of the things that was mentioned here was hiring a county manager.
Yes.
And you know where I stand on that.
I know where you stand on that, and I have I've talked to Council Huddle about it a little bit. I have done some preliminary figures of how that can be accomplished without hitting the budget.
Okay.
So it'd be some zero-based adjustments to pay for that county manager and within the commissioner's fund.
Okay, perfect.
So.
Was there another thing?
This is the grants that I am moving out of the general fund and into restricted funds. It will reduce the budgeted revenues and expenditures in the general fund by over $2 million. And that's just because, well, there's like the Brookings Head Start one is very restricted. It does not belong in the general fund. It should have its own restricted funds. And that's $1.6 million right there. So the material and supply budgets. So if you go through the individual department budgets, this is their material and supply budget. Of that amount, this is the amount that was budgeted for grants in those line items, and these are the intergovernmental services. So this form right here is the calculation over here is based on this column right here of just the material and supplies. So that would be the 5% in each department. And then down here would be the adjustment out of the administrative services, IGSs, that would also contribute to the reduction in the general fund.
Okay.
I think that's all of my handouts.
I would have only one comment at this time, and it has to do with the subject of grants in general. And this would be for any department head, any elected official, everybody. If you have grants existing or coming up and you don't know if the accountant knows about it, assume that they don't and contact her, because we have some nightmares
Yes.
still in grants and surprises to the tune of many, 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 many tens of thousands of dollars.
And I did discuss that with the department
Okay,
heads
but,
when
yeah,
I was interviewing them.
Just can't repeat it enough.
that-
You know, the grants need to go through the accountant, needs to be aware of them. She's trying to consolidate and get a handle on the grants. We need to get a handle on the grants. I'll just leave it at that, because we have some absolutely unnecessary large surprises coming up in the grant area that are going to have to come up with some general funds that there was no reason that it should have occurred. Just no
Yeah, they're
reason.
very specific in how they can be spent.
Yeah.
Yes, very specific. They need budgets, they need line items budgeted just for them, and they need to
Even,
get set up. And
one the other day with a letter that I was asked to write for the local public safety coordinating council on a 2-year-old grant, I copied Louise on that, so she's at least aware of that. I provided her a copy of the actual grant, the contract. We just don't need any more surprises like we've had recently.
So, are there any questions on any of my recommendations, or I'd like to add that to get this list of recommendations, I met with each department head, went through every fund in the budget, which includes funds outside the general fund. I went and looked at each one what they were responsible for, and through talking to them, and then looking at history, I developed this list of recommendations. I took it to the large meeting of the department heads on March, let's see, was it the 6th, I think? It was a Monday. And we discussed all these recommendations. So I wanted to be sure that when I talked about each department and any kind of reduction I did in their department or any kind of adjustment I did to the budget was known by everybody in the county and discussed by everybody that it affected. So we did have a couple of hours meeting and talked about these recommendations, and they agreed that these are the ones I should take to the board. So that's what I did.
Well, and that's good. There's no surprises when you do that.
Yes.
I have seen it, for basically 2 work days. We talked last week. I will have, some comments, but I want to still go through my notes some more, and then I'll get with you
Okay.
separately on those.
I'd just like to this is a very hard budget. I agree so much with what everybody said from Lip Sync and CBAC, that there's so many of these adjustments that I am making in this budget that might last 1 year or 2 years. But something really needs to be organized and done about the revenues in this county, because there's no place else left to go except for starting to close down services completely. And that's not, I know people think that everybody's shouting wolf, but I've only been here since August. And it's very plain that this county is in trouble, and it's in trouble because of its revenues. And the only solution to being in trouble with your revenues is not to keep cutting your budget, but to find solutions to to revenue sources.
Well, I think we need to gain the trust of the people again. And the only way we're going to gain the trust is by pulling together instead of all this backstabbing type of stuff. It's not going to work otherwise.
So do you have any questions?
Not at this, not at
So
this time.
the next discussion will be at the April, is it 6th, 5th? April 5th. I'm trying to see the calendar from across the room.
That's the next general
The
meeting. is on
next
April
general
5th.
meeting, then these discussions, or these recommendations will need to be conveyed to me, so a decision will have to be made in order for me to build a proposed budget.
So if we have any suggestions, do we need to get together with you personally? I know we can't meet together and.
I think that you should discuss, if you have suggestions and you support either some of my recommendations and some of CBAC's, or
Okay.
some combination of everything, that should be discussed at the public meeting and decided on by the board. I think that we should really make a concerted effort to get this, give this direction based on the consensus of the board.
I know it's really hard for you to build a budget without, knowing all the recommendations
Yes,
and
and
so
so
forth.
I can build the worksheets in preparation to telling people what is coming up, but until I get that recommendations, I can't finalize worksheets for the staff to finish building their budgets to be prepared for the budget committee meetings.
County Council?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I wasn't sure if I understood the question and answer from Commissioner Gold and the county accountant.
I'm not either, but go
Right.
ahead.
Good. Well, what it seemed like I heard was Commissioner Gold asked if she had any questions about what was presented, could she go talk to the county accountant one-on-one? And it seemed like the county
No.
accountant
Oh,
answered,
okay.
you all need to discuss this in a public meeting. I agree.
That's not what my understanding of her
Good.
question.
And
My
I could be
understanding-
understanding it wrong too. I'm just
My
hearing it.
I
and I just-
understood it that
of her
way.
question was,
No.
can I give you other recommendations other than what you have presented? And if there's those kind of things, I think they should be discussed in the public meeting. If she has any questions about any of these recommendations and how I came about them, see any one of the,
Your specific
yeah.
recommendations, okay.
because I don't know, I don't have the answers to the CBAC recommendations.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know about having recommendations that are outside of any of these. I don't know if they should be brought up.
So if we wanted to, say, use some of the CBAC recommendations, we would have to bring those up at that meeting on April 5th.
Well, if you have questions about them, you ask the CBAC. They have.
Well, right, but if we wanted to have those included, those recommendations included within the budget, that's when the appropriate time to do it.
How that will work. If each commissioner comes with their choices of all of the recommendations and they talk it out, or if each commissioner considers all the recommendations at one time and sorts them out in the meeting, I don't know. I really don't know.
I can
what
just
the
see a
process is.
free-for-all.
Yes. But the
Well, I will
process.
come to you with a lot of questions and a lot of,
Yeah.
Suggestions and questions to answers and possibly
Yes.
other suggestions.
And if there's
Certainly.
any thing that you're considering and you need the financial background of it in order to present it at the meeting, that would certainly,
Okay,
I can certainly help out on that too.
because I'm always loaded with questions, but
It's like-
I've got to know what kind of
Yeah,
questions I can ask.
that's okay. I don't think there is any, of asking a question, but,
Well, a decision can't be made,
yeah,
I
a
understand.
decision can't be made.
Lots-
And if
Lots
the.
of questions.
If you have something that's outside of these recommendations and you need all the information to get it suggested within your debate on the
Okay,
in the meeting, then we certainly can talk about that too.
okay,
You
good.
have to.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah,
you're
you
the
have
source.
to get the
Yeah.
source materials.
Well, and it would be more expedient if you had those suggestions or whatever ahead of time, so
Yes.
you can have that research prepared.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
I would not limit any question, anything that you might have, anything that I might have, I'm going to
Okay.
ask Louise.
Okay,
Sure.
so she can be prepared for that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
On
we need
slot.
that
I'll know
information
who,
back.
I'll
Sure.
know that
Sure.
each commissioner has asked me certain things, so it'll probably be
Sure.
discussed at the meeting, that's for sure,
Sure.
yes.
Okay,
Right, and just Louise cannot communicate to any
What-
given commissioner what any
exactly.
other
You
given
don't
commissioner
tell
has
Yeah.
told her.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Gold,
Thanks.
what we talked about,
Right.
you don't tell Commissioner Gold,
No.
vice, and back and forth, sure. Okay, I think Sheriff Ward had a question or comment. You want to come on up?
Just on one of her recommendations, you guys are in a tough position, and she's in a tough position, CVAX, we're all in a tough position. And there's a lot of comments I could make, but there's one comment I would like to make on her recommendation number 6, and that's the 6 days unpaid furlough. I had a couple conversations with Louise, and tried to explain, and she explained back. But the caveat here is we're a 24/7 operation over there, unlike the rest of the departments. And we have minimum staffing that we have to provide, especially in the jail and dispatch. With taking those days off or scheduling them out, we have to put somebody in that seat. So it's going to be an overtime issue, which is going to cost more in the long run because every one of those shifts has to be filled. Especially like, say, for instance, civil. I have to put somebody in civil for 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, because the courts, they bring over at any given time of the day things that have to be processed and served that day. So I have to have civil and the amount of concealed handgun license and blah, blah, blah. But, and then in the jail, we're, like I say, we're down to where we're just at minimum staffing. It's real tough to figure out how to reschedule somebody to take that day off. And we got guys that put guns on every day, put vests on, go out and protect the citizens, and yet they have to take a reduction of pay to do that. It just doesn't make sense to us. So just keep in mind that if we have to take those or reduce those days, we have to fill them in overtime, and it's going to cost more in the long run.
well, and I think that's probably an important thing. You need to talk with Louise about that.
We have.
Okay, so it can be brought out at, the meeting in dollars and cents
And the
type
other
of thing.
point of that is, some of the things that we're moving over into restricted funds like P&P and search and rescue, marine, forest, they shouldn't have to take a day off because those are state funds. They're funded, basically. There's no way to give them a day off, and what are you going to do with that extra money you save? It doesn't go back in the general fund. It has to stay with the program. Thank you.
I'll have a question. This is an example of one that I would, be coming to Louise on because the total was 102,000. That's countywide. So with respect to the whole budget,
It's not countywide, that 102 is what affected the general fund.
Correct, okay. But again, it will be to look at.
It would be a countywide type program though.
Correct. But
And because this is a recommendation and basically a suggestion, there's nothing really in stone about how it works and how it works out. It's just all of the semantics of it have to be decided if that is one of the recommendations that the board and the budget committee pursue.
Correct, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you.
I think it's 12:16. I think we've gone through the 3 topics, so we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much for coming. And County Council already has been holding his microphone off his tie. I've watched you. As a matter of fact, you had to put it back on the last time you spoke.
Always checking it out.